So this week we're continuing our sermon series on the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism, which are essentially the core precepts of the religion. Jerry spoke about the first noble truth last week, which is that basically suffering is inevitable in life. And we move on to the second noble truth today, which is that suffering is caused by desire and craving and attachment. Next week we'll move on to a few more. We'll bring Jerry back a little bit next week, and then the following week we'll finish up. But I have a number of books by Jack Kornfield, who is just a really, really easy read when trying to understand the concepts of Buddhism. Tells lots and lots of wonderful stories. This is called The Wise Heart. And I'd like to read actually a quote that he has in here by a guru of non-dualism, Nisargadatta. And he says this: "Pain is physical, suffering is mental. Suffering is due entirely to clinging or resisting. It is a sign of our unwillingness to move, to flow with life. Although all life has pain, a wise life is free of suffering. A wise person is friendly with the inevitable and does not suffer. Pain they know, but it does not break them. If they can, they do what is possible to restore balance. If not, they let things take their course."
Today's scripture reading is from James chapter 4, verses 1 and 2. "Where do these conflicts and battles among you first start? Isn't it that they come from the desires that battle within you? You want something but don't get it, so you're prepared to kill to get it. You have ambitions that you can't satisfy, so you fight to get your way by force."
Short, sweet, and to the point. Would you pray with me? Holy One, this is not an easy concept to absorb, much less to live. So may your Spirit flow in and through us to help us come to deeper wisdom and deeper understanding of our lives, of you, and of this world. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of each of our hearts be filled with your insight, your inspiration. Amen. So as I said, that first noble truth says that suffering is inevitable. And I think the quote that I read makes a really interesting distinction, that pain is physical and suffering is mental. Pain is unavoidable in life. There's nothing any of us are going to do to get out of this world without some kind of physical pain, much though we'd like to think otherwise. Mental suffering, however, we often bring upon ourselves, if not always bring upon ourselves. And so suffering, mental suffering, is avoidable to the extent that we allow ourselves to avoid it and to let go. And so you've all heard the phrase that we don't necessarily choose what happens to us, but we choose how we're going to respond, right? I posted something on Facebook this week on our page that said, we don't always choose the music that life gives us, but we choose how we're going to dance to it. And there's another one that I read that says, we don't have control over things outside of us, but we have control over what's inside of us. All of this speaks to the second noble truth of Buddhism, which is that suffering is caused by craving and desire, and it's rooted in ignorance. Okay? Craving, desire, attachment, clinging, grasping, all of those words are sort of interchangeable when it comes to understanding this concept. It's that which we won't let go of to the extent that it causes us emotional suffering. And rooted, it's the sort of thing that the James passage talks about. Okay? This has been going on forever, right? The James passage very succinctly says, you all are having all kinds of conflict. Why? It's because you're not getting what you want. And because you're not getting what you want, you're fighting for it, and you're killing each other for it, and you're suffering for it. It's all about that clinging and attachment. And the second piece, the rooted in ignorance, is not meant as an insult. It's saying that we're not remembering or accepting or allowing ourselves to understand that everything is impermanent. There is, that in some ways, everything we want to grasp to is an illusion. It's not going to last. The Buddhist said, it seems as though we thought ourselves to be permanent, but we're not. As though we thought ourselves to be settled. Nothing's ever going to change. But we're not. It's as though we thought ourselves to live forever. But we will not. That's simply the reality that we really would like to ignore. But then we find ourselves living in that place of ignorance and illusion. Buddhist Dharma teacher Jerry Larkin, we read one of her books recently for the women's group, talks about human beings in a specific, interesting way. You know what this is? Velcro. Ever play with Velcro? She says human beings have a Velcro nature. We get stuck to things really easily, and sometimes that Velcro is darn hard to get apart. Did you ever notice that? It reminded me as I started thinking about that. Have any of you ever done a Velcro wall? Did you know they have Velcro walls? So you dress in a suit, that's one side of the Velcro, and then there's a wall, that's the other side of the Velcro, and you run and you jump at the wall. So if you saw our profile picture for Sacred Journeys this week, it's this person doing this. Now you know what that is. They're stuck to a Velcro wall like this. You look at the pictures and they're stuck sideways or upside down or however they threw themselves at the wall. And I'm thinking to myself, how did they get themselves off the wall? It must take like 3 people to peel them off the wall. You go, oh, bye, dear, see you later, and like show up back up 2 weeks later, they're still hanging on the wall. I did ask my daughter, and apparently she's done them. She says really the Velcro doesn't stick very well anymore, so apparently you can pull yourself off the wall. But if you were the first person to use that suit, all bets are off. But that's what our nature is like. We get something stuck in our heads, and we throw ourselves at it, and there we stand until we peel ourselves off and let go. So, I tend to find this amusing, if not downright annoying sometimes, that when I'm preaching a message and working on it, something happens in my life that so succinctly falls in line with what I'm preaching. So here's what happened. January 3rd, I auditioned for the Racine Theater Guild's upcoming performance of Superstar, which is the sung tribute to Andrew Lloyd Webber. Okay? God knows I didn't tell anybody because it just kind of freaks me out. And So I went to the audition, and they're done in half-hour blocks with a group of people, right? And I'm looking around, and all these people are like young and cute, and except for the one old guy who was a bass. And then there's like me, and I've never auditioned before. And I'm getting more and more nervous. I have no water, my throat is dry, I'm shaking, I'm feeling like I'm looking old. I'm the last person to audition in this set of people. And I'm thinking, my glasses make me look old. I'll leave them behind, but I'll take my cheat sheet up with me because I'm worried that I'm going to forget the words, and then I forget the words, but I can't read the words because I left my glasses behind. So it was not like a stellar audition in any way, shape, or form, to my opinion. And I was just glad really to be done and go home. And I tried to pat myself on the back, well, you did it, Kaye. It was the first time you've done anything like that. Good for you. Whatever happens now is good. Trying to peel myself off the wall of hope that maybe, possibly, I could get cast in this thing and sing really cool songs. And so, like, the next couple days, I'm checking my email, and then I start working on this sermon, and I go, oh, really? It's as if the universe kind of went, oh, you're talking about attachment this week. Let's see how that works in your life. So, okay, deep breath. I'm going to sit with my suffering and see what I can learn from my suffering. Clearly, my suffering is because I am attached to the outcome of really wanting to be in this show, even though I know that that's kind of silly, and I can feel it in my stomach, and my breath gets shallow when I think about it, and my heart starts beating. I go, deep breath, I'm letting go of my attachment to the outcome. And so for the next, 5 days or whatever, because that was Thursday, so they're like, well, we'll let you know by next Wednesday. Thinking, geez, if I'm the director, I'd have it cast in 2 days and we'd all be done. But so, I'm checking my email and I'm trying to let it go. It was my mantra for the week. Every time I started to feel tense, let it go. And sometimes I was more successful than others, and I could feel when I could let it go, I would be more peaceful inside. And it was all okay. So, got through it. Bottom line, I was cast in the show. And so, that's probably the only reason I can tell that story, because it turned out right. But that is just one little example of Velcroing ourselves to something. What else do we cling to? What else are we attached to? Really, you can't think of anything?
Shoes.
Our possessions, our shoes? Of course you are, Mike. You're lucky your hair is not falling out. What else are we attached to? Habits, sure. What else? Traditions. The past. Expectations. Routines. Worry. People. I heard something else.
Judgment.
Judgment, our biases, perhaps.
We're attached to an outcome.
We're attached to an outcome. Mm-hmm. We're attached to our beliefs, our opinions. Mark?
Failures.
Say that again. We're
Failure.
failures, yes. Unfortunately, we get attached to our failures. If we're lucky, we get attached to our successes. I was jumping up and down. I got cast. All that non-attachment went right out the window, back on the wall. Our homes, our appearances, our looks, everything that we're attached to makes life. It's amazing we ever get off the wall. Maybe we don't. Maybe we go from one wall to another. Maybe we got a wall on both sides of us. We're sandwiched. I don't know. And it's not to say that any of those things as individually negative or bad. You know, the second noble truth doesn't say you are not allowed to have any things or love any person or have any likes or dislikes or any opinions on anything. It doesn't say any of that. It just says when you get too attached to any one of those things, ideas, people, yada yada, you're bound to make yourself miserable and suffer. It's just kind of the way it is. Letting go is not only the goal. I'm going to say this multiple times. If you don't get this by the end of the sermon, I'm going to quiz you, okay, at the end. Letting go is not just the goal, it is the path. Okay? Letting go is not just the goal, it is the path. It is what I did for 5-6 days before I finally got the answer. Let go, let go, let go. Those moments I could let go were beautiful. Peaceful and calm and bright and wonderful. So, you know, it's not the stuff that we have that makes us suffer. It's when we get too attached to having them and not able to ever let them go that we begin to suffer. And I think about Carol Howard, whose apartment burned down not that long ago. And she lost everything. And she handled it really, really well. I think most of us expected her to melt down completely. And she didn't. Because she was not that attached to it. She knew it was, yeah, maybe it didn't make her happy. She wasn't, you know, but she didn't get stuck in a place. In fact, I never really, she was just, well, it's just stuff. Which is beautiful. The most annoying thing she had to do was replace her stuff. Being able to let go like that gives us freedom. When we're not so attached to it, we're allowed to appreciate it and to be grateful for it. We have freedom that we didn't have before. With people, you know, it's okay to love and care for our children and our partners and our parents and our relatives and whoever, but if we start to want to control what they do and how they do it, we're going to suffer, are we not? Because we can't control what anybody else does, inevitably. And so if we can begin to let go of our expectations and our taking things personally, if we can let them be who they are, where they are, we have the freedom to move into a place of acceptance and appreciation and gratitude for those people. Again, letting go is not only the goal, but the path, because that's a really hard path. Let go, let go, let go. Emotions. We can get stuck on our emotions. Anger and resentment and hate sometimes. You know, some of those emotions can be a natural part of being human, but if we get stuck there, they will cause us to suffer. And if we sit with them, if we understand where they've come from and the attachment that they're triggering, then we can learn from them and grow from them and move into a place of wisdom and compassion and caring. There's a story about the Dalai Lama. There was a reporter who pushed the Dalai Lama on his quote, where he pretty much said that he was not angry with communist China. And he got pushed on it. How can you not be angry? And the Dalai Lama said, they've destroyed our temples, they've taken over Tibet, they've burned our sacred texts, they've ruined our communities, they've taken away our freedom, they've taken so much. Why would I also let them take my peace of mind? How hard is that to do? But because he can do it, the world looks to him as a compassionate caring, wise leader who is working for justice. And he has the freedom to be that without his soul getting sucked dry in the process. And grief is one of the hardest things to let go of. Because when we start to talk about being attached to our grief, I've found that people get defensive and say, well, but I love that person. Yeah, it's great for you to love a person. That's not the attachment that we're talking about. When we get so attached that we live in a place of illusion, we lose the ability to be free and grateful. When we get so stuck in our grief, when I talk about non-attachment from that, people go, well, but that means I'm going to forget them if I stop grieving, or it means they weren't important enough to me if I stopped grieving, or I didn't really love them if I stopped grieving. And that's not what that's about. It's about being able to sit with that grief, to work through that grief, probably over and over again, so that you can breathe free again, so that there's a place of peace within you where you can celebrate the person who's gone. And celebrate their memory. And be grateful for who they were in your life and the lessons you learned from them and the things that you did with them to get to that place. And my guess is you all know what that place feels like. Because sometimes it takes us a while down the road, but you can touch that person's memory and it doesn't hurt anymore. You can simply be in a place of gratitude and freedom and celebration of that person. But again, it's a process, not just a goal. It's a letting go so that we are not emotionally causing our own suffering by hanging on to something that's inevitable. And I'm not trying to make that sound crass or uncaring or anything else, but we are all mortal and we don't want to remember it, and life is impermanent and everything will pass away. All we have is right here, right now. This is it. So to be appreciative of what we have in this moment and try to live from a place of peace and compassion and joy by letting go of all that list that we put out here. I think Jesus even had examples of this that sometimes we don't take that way. Do you remember when he had a man who wanted to follow him? But the man said, Jesus, I want to follow, but I need to bury my father first. And Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead and come follow me. And we take that as, man, Jesus is really unfeeling, he doesn't care at all. But what if it simply means you're on a path where you recognize that this moment is light and life and awakening and enlightenment. You are spiritually alive and moving down that path. Let those who aren't quite there spiritually yet, who don't need that, let them take care of it. That life is gone, it was impermanent. Live. And maybe that still sounds crass to you. I think when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he said, God, if you can take this cup from me. And we see a little bit of clinging from Jesus. Little arms on the Velcro wall. If you can take this cup from me. And he sits with it, and he takes a deep breath and says, but, whatever it's going to be, God. Not just what I want, but let me be with what is. And then we have Jesus after the resurrection in the garden with Mary Magdalene. And she sees the vision of him and she wants to go up and hug him and hang on to him. And he says, no, don't cling to me. I'm not here. I'm not permanent. Don't do this clinging thing. Live. Celebrate. Go forth and share what I taught you. Don't get stuck here on me. there are echoes in our scripture that encourage us again to live from a place of non-attachment. So my encouragement for you is to be self-aware, to recognize when you're hanging on the wall, or when part of you is stuck to that Velcro wall. And it's okay, sit with it, recognize it, but then analyze where it's coming from. Why are you stuck there? What outcome or expectation or attempt to be perfect are you stuck to? And then pry yourself off. Take a deep breath. And, feel what it feels like first, though. Because that's what suffering feels like. That knot in the stomach, the tightness in the chest, the sharpness of breath, the anxiety, the fear, the whatever. That's what suffering feels like. And then deep breath and let it go. And allow the peace to come. And what did I tell you to remember? Letting go is not just the goal, it is the path. Okay, everybody now, letting go is not just the goal, it is the path. Amen.
Amen.